And this is Nic Scogna. I am the Holistic Monitor, and welcome. Glad to have you here again today. And we have special guests, two guests today. We're going to be talking to Gail and Gregory Hoag. We're going to be going into sacred geometry, one of my favorite subjects. They have a new book out, and they also have really amazing items that can benefit your life, something that you can wear. So let's bring them in. Gail, Gregory, how are we doing?
We're doing great.
Thank you for having us.
There we
This
go.
is going to be fun.
Absolutely, absolutely. So you have this new book out. We're going to be talking about what it involves. We're going to go through it, I believe. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Well, we have some images from inside.
Okay.
And if you want to see what the cover looks like, this is our new book that's dealing with the universal language of divine alignment. So, powerful subject. Where do you want to start, Nic?
Me back on stage and you back on stage. Hold on one second here. I got lost in the frames. There we go. Okay.
Okay.
So where are we going to start? Let's start with what got you started in this world of sacred geometry, this mindset of the alternative. What brought you into this world of the unseen?
Mm-hmm. Well, we've been doing this work for a very long time. It's at this point, it's around 40 years. And, we both had a background in doing spiritual work. Mine came out of being an artist and having certain experiences that opened me up to this higher realm. And when I was years ago, I was living in Washington, D.C., and I was really engaged in the role in the work of Buckminster Fuller, who created the geodesic dome, and just a brilliant being. And when he when he spoke about the tetrahedron and all kinds of things, it spoke to me. And so I was just very much involved in that. In the early 80s, he passed away. Well, I'd been doing a lot of spiritual work and meditation and put it out to the universe and said, look, Fuller had passed away. And I thought, hey, I'd love to keep learning from him. Is that something that this consciousness is open to? So I asked. And after a period of time, I saw that he was coming to me and he was teaching me all kinds of things. And it was going beyond what I could really do anything with because I didn't have a scientific background. And so I said, whoa, this is like way over my head. Send me somebody that I can do something with this or, tap it down. And it was probably within a couple of weeks that I met Gregory. And we met where I was renting a room from a friend who was renovating a house that he had just recently sold. And I had these paintings I had just had delivered from New York. And I was checking on my paintings. And here was this man carrying around a box of geometries with all these different tetrahedrons. And I said to him, do you know the work of Buckminster Fuller? He said, no, never heard of him. I said, well, you need to know. And I invited him to come to an evening where I was going to be tuning in to that energy and bringing through that the messages. And that kind of kicked off our relationship and my journey into this exploration with sacred geometry.
Wow. That's amazing. I love that.
And for me, I had spent a decade before I graduated from college in the sciences back in 1970. And then after living in different ashrams, studying with different teachers, and I built a pyramid because I still was running businesses. And this pyramid in today's dollars would probably be over 200,000.
Hmm.
And it was only 10 feet high.
Wow.
But it had so much going on in it that when I slept in it, it set off my Kundalini,
Hmm.
which, for those who don't know, that's a Hindi term that when the energy that is physically here in your body, in the earth, starts moving back through you, reaching up for the higher realms to bring the two in connection, that's what started going on with my body. And excuse me, I had so much energy going through me that there were literally holes being burned in my hands and
Hmm.
in the middle of both of my feet, just from the energy passing through my body. And it got a little frightening for a long time, but when it finally started to settle a little bit, I started communicating with higher dimensional realms, and they started showing me patterns of the way energy works before it becomes physical matter. So I started building these, and I didn't know anything about sacred geometry or even geometry. I couldn't tell you the platonic solids or hadn't paid any attention to any of that stuff. I just simply knew what I was seeing and building it. And that's what I had in the car when I bumped into Gail. And then I brought it in and said, here, these are things that when I started sharing them with people, they would start to feel energy coming from it.
Hmm.
And so when we first met, we realized that we had work to do together. And it was a very profound connection. And it's been going on for our entire 40 years now.
Yeah. Wow. And it's a one of a kind kind of experience too.
Yeah, it was pretty unusual.
Yeah. That's great.
Well,
And bound in such a way too, which is kind of through the realm of geometries.
Mhm. Weird.
absolutely. And it was one of those things where after we were seeing each other for a couple weeks, I realized that in my wallet, I had a card that she had, a handmade card she had made a year earlier that someone had handed me and said, you need to meet this woman.
Wow.
But I was moving too slow for universe. So they had to negotiate another way of us getting together. They're determined,
Yeah.
whoever they are.
It's amazing, and that use the tuning fork often as an analogy to help people understand how vibing together works. And
Mhm.
um, I find that when you're talking about the Kundalini, it reminds me a lot of what organisms or plants and things of the earth do as they strive to reach the sun. They strive to move upward and straighten and go towards the sun, whatever direction the sun's going. Right. Our
Mhm.
Kundalini empowerment like that is the same kind of driving force where it's grounding in and it's trying to reach up and beyond. And a lot of us will stop that consciously or unconsciously, but we'll kind of put a little hold on that. We don't want to necessarily have the floodgates opened with that kind of energy. I myself had that same kind of experience where I was like, oh, this is a little much, a little too many things happening outside of myself um,
Mm.
when the Kundalini's moving. And I find it interesting with the pyramid. Was this material metal? Was this stone? What were you build? What did you build this pyramid with?
It was actually, we had, um,
Oh, what just happened?
okay,
Little blip.
a little blip. Um, we built it out of stainless steel tubing
Hmm.
that was engineered by some engineers at a college, so it was very precise. We filled it with crushed quartz crystal, and inside we had a capstone that had 3 levels in it with large crystal balls at each level. The capstone was copper, and then we overlaid silver and then overlaid gold. And the
Wow.
base had a crystal about 3 feet high that was with a parabolic reflector under it. And it had a crystal ball that was over 2 feet across sitting above it.
Wow.
And it took over a year to carve that in Germany. And when we brought all the pieces together, that specific crystalline energy, and then the whole piece was covered with silk over the outside of the pyramid.
Wow.
So working with that energy and the consciousness that was behind it, it shifted a lot of things.
It sounds like quite a combination.
Well,
The silk on the outside too.
it taught me how to be a lot more respectful of subtle energy, how to set conditions, how to be careful of working with energy so that all the things we design now, we always work with things that are going to support people in their growth without overloading them, without
Oh,
being
right.
something where they could misuse it unintentionally. So that's part of the learning from that time of how to work consciously with sacred geometry.
Right. And that fits in very well with Buckminster Fuller and that kind of idea of working with the geodesic principles of, you're working in harmony with nature and with sacred geometry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, Buckminster Fuller he was amazing. I mean, he went way out there in how he connected into universe and created his own language with all the omnidirectionals that he saw. and yet he was also very grounded. He wanted to create something that was practical, that had applications to this time, this physical realm, and to the people here. So yeah, I really respect that. It's important if we want to be able to go way out there with our consciousness, then the next thing is, how do you bring it all back together? How do you make it work for where we are here right now in this physical body, in this physical realm, and make a difference? Because I think when it comes down to it, it's really about the evolution. How do you make a difference with all of these different patterns and concepts and all the different work that we do?
Yeah, and I think that is something that going outside of the box a little bit, people miss. They don't understand when they see it from afar. They're like, what are people doing with all of these contraptions, the copper pyramids? They go to maybe a show and they see people working with crystals and they're like, what is going on? And what's really interesting to me is that those are people that are actually doing something with this energy and bringing it out and giving back to the people, in a sense, opening people up to the possibility that's within them. Instead of it just being a lying in concept, it's manifest. And I find that to be really great. It's something that you guys are doing, which I just love. You're not only putting out a wonderful book with lots of information in it to help the mind, but also making items and kind of creating things to help each other along the way.
With everything that we've done over all these years, we always came from a spiritual base, that foundation of what are we really here for? What's our higher purpose? And both Greg and I found that our purpose was really to help facilitate conscious evolution. And so we have been developing tools over the years that assist people in the basic connections of who we really are. Because we live here in a world with so many different structures and parameters that kind of keep us in boxes. You know, many people live in boxes, and we're in these containers that don't really support that higher aspect of who we are, the creative aspects of who we are. And so what our work has done is, and we have things that, because all the years that we've been doing this, we have products all over the world with so many people. And it's really about how this is something that helps them connect to their higher self, to evolving their consciousness, to be able to have an experience of being a multidimensional being, not just a physical being, because we're so much more than that. So that really is, like, you know, the essence behind everything that we've done, is to make a difference for people and for the planet, you know, to help us understand the oneness of who we are, the beautiful creation that we survive here in.
Yeah, and vital. That's very vital that many, many more people kind of get the idea that we're here to take care of one another and to take care of the planet that we're on. It's the only one we got. So, you know, maybe a cliche, but it's the truth. It's like
Absolutely.
the air we're breathing is the same air somebody else is going to be breathing. And it's vital that we maintain some form of reality, which is that equilibrium. Reality is balance. Reality is living in a higher purpose. That is the reality. And people are all about kind of like, oh, I'm not really here, and this is an illusion or a hologram, but it is a reality. You know, this is the actual. It's the starting point. This is where we make the action, and
Yeah.
and it's good to see you guys doing that.
It's an opportunity to be here in a physical body, however you define this reality. And working with sacred geometry, it's an understanding of how everything in universe fits together, works together. And the way energy moves from one place to another is through harmonic resonance, which is what you were talking about earlier with a tuning fork. If you have a C tuning fork and you play a C tone, that tuning fork is going to start to vibrate. Well, there are patterns and rhythms and cycles and numbers that can be expressed over many different mediums. And what I mean by that is you can be working with shape and degrees and have that resonant with miles and have that resonant with time. And when you get those different elements lined up, and time can be the revolution of a spinning object. And the way energy moves is through spirals. And so when you link these things up and see how is universe doing all of this, and then realize if we were to dance the way the universe is dancing, it would make it so much easier for us to experience those higher dimensional energies. Because as we've all been talking about, there are things in this environment with the toxins, with the electromagnetic pollution, with the fear and the negative emotions and the stress and the judgments and the beliefs. All of these things disconnect us from soul, disconnect us from the bigger part of ourselves. And when we work with something of a universal nature, something that is archetypical in the way it is beneath the way everything has been formed and created, when we touch into that, when we tap into that truth in a geometry that's next to us, or something we can wear on our body, or something we can meditate with and be in sync with, it starts to shift us into that bigger realm as well. It's like being in nature and feeling, because everything around us is being naturally what it should. The water, the trees, the plants, the birds, the sun shining down on us. We can feel just that connection. And then when we go into a room with a lot of computers in a city, we start to lose it. So how do we carry that with us all the time, regardless of what's going on? That's been the nature of our quest and what we've been doing with sacred geometry.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that's, the key word there may be alignment. Is that we get out of alignment, or we agree to be out of alignment, or we align with something that's not in alignment. But when we find alignment, we're aligning ourselves with the little to the big, or, with the infinite, with numerics, with geometry, with the things that just are the way they are. And we are the way we are, just as we are. And when we add all these extra attributes and extra things, we start to align ourselves in a different direction than just being in alignment. And that's amazing. That's profound. And again, I love that you've found a way to make this work, to put the information out, and also to put out items and jewelry that people can wear to kind of help themselves align with a purpose, or align themselves with the infinite.
Yeah. There's so many people who are on a quest. They're spiritual seekers. They're trying to make their life be more purposeful, bring more positive energy onto the planet and into their lives. And, it's been really amazing how many people there are that are so gifted, and yet they're struggling. They're still struggling because there's a lot of challenges when we're not aligned, when we don't have everything set up for ourselves the way we would like to. And so we found that over the years, and it's really been wonderful, and in some cases very surprising, to see how much a person's life can change from simple things with when, we have different geometries that people will meditate underneath of. And when they meditate, they can get into a deep meditation so much more quickly. Well, that's pretty valuable because we're all busy in our lives. And yet that time that we have to sit and be is so valuable that when we can get into a meditation and we can go deeper faster, it's great. And the important thing is then we can come out of it without being like zoned out. And that is really the nature of this. And it's because we're using these principles of how creation itself happens, how it's evolved. And so when we're working with those patterns and those principles of how everything is connected, then it all works very simply. And then having something like a pendant that is with them all the time, it's beautiful, but it's so much more than that. It actually supports their intuition, their higher consciousness, their ability to be more present. And when we're more present, then all kinds of things are right at our fingertips. So it's been amazing to see how people's relationships have changed, how things have come into their lives. Things like, I like to talk about the fact that serendipitous things just start happening. You think of something and minutes later, something comes right into your purview. And I believe that that's the natural way that things are meant to be. But when we're not aligned, then it doesn't happen that way. So it really all comes back down to that resonance.
Yeah, resonance as well. Right. Yeah, lining yourself up with what you want. I think that's pretty important. Meditation and deeper states of meditation what is a benefit? One of the easiest ones to look at is just to be on the ball, to be in the moment, in the right place at the right time. I think that that's a hallmark of something that can be acquired very easily from just slowing down, allowing things to be the way they're going to be, allowing things to come together the way they're going to come together, because they will.
Definitely.
Let it happen.
Yeah.
So
Presence.
yeah, presence. Yeah, exactly. Does your book go through lessons or any kind of ways for people to kind of tap in?
Oh, many ways. One of the things that we start with is consciousness, and then what blocks consciousness, and then how to make that connection with higher consciousness, and how the numbers reflect that. So we go through all the numbers and give not just the understanding of the quantities of numbers, but how they work in terms of having character, having even a sense of creation and personality, and how they really define the way different aspects of creation work. And then we take it right into how resonance, like we've been talking about, starts to unfold. I can first, I was just going to share with you that
Yeah.
here are the pictures close up of the pendants that we were talking about. And this is one pendant. They have two sides because one side has energy that is moving the energy up in your body. And the other side, when you wear that toward your body, you start feeling more grounded and connected into the earth. But when we're talking about geometries, and let's see, here, when I was mentioning resonance, that's how everything in universe flows, where you can have things like the diameter of the moon, which is 2,160 miles, and that is resonant with time, as far as 2,160 years is the amount of time for one cycle of the zodiac. So we're just moving out of Pisces into the age of Aquarius. That's a 2,160 year cycle. And those are both resonant with this geometry, a cube. So when you start working with geometries, you start working with some of these divine principles, and you can bring them into your life. Like in this image, what we're sharing are the top platonic solids, 3 of them. All the degrees add up to the number of miles in the diameter of the sun when multiplied by 100. The next row of geometries, that adds up to the diameter of the earth. And then the cube is the diameter of the moon. And these are incredible resonant relationships. So what we call the platonic solids are actually divine archetypes. They existed before creation because so many things in creation follow their patterns. And in this case, the diameter of the moon plus the diameter of the earth, when you turn that into degrees, you're going to get a geometry. And that geometry is what is sitting next to us right here, that we call the sphere of health, because it is working with the resonance with the moon and the earth. Plus, it's working with something called the phi ratio, which is the way everything in our body is constructed and the way animals and plants grow, even down to our DNA follows the patterns and the ratios that are set up with the phi ratio. So it's like this starts giving you an idea of how these geometries, when we bring them into something like our pendant, we found a way where we can take a geometry and something simple like a cube. You can see that if you look at it from the point, you get one geometry like a hexagon with 6 triangles in it, or the face is a square, or the edge is a rectangle. And we do this with complicated geometries, and that's what we've put on the face of our pendants to attract 3-dimensional energy. So each of these little patterns are aspects of a 3-dimensional geometry that we've placed on here. This is in copper overlaid with gold. And when you surround it with a circle, you get that energy to coalesce into a unity where basically you're able to draw on 3-dimensional energy in a 2-dimensional antenna system. So that's what we've created in working with the outside of our pendants.
Yeah, it's amazing. Absolutely amazing. And I'd note that also that all of those different degrees, they all equal 9 if you add them up, which puts you into that realm.
Absolutely.
All right. Every single one of them.
And that is because 9 is the completion number.
Yeah.
It is, in essence, it's the container for all the other numbers. And it's what defines everything that is a sacred number, which, the diameter of the earth and the moon and the sun and all of these different elements, they always reduce to 9. And
Yeah.
that's the nature of the power of 9. And 3 is really the core of what 9 and 6 are all about. 3 plus 3 is 6, and 3 times 3 is 9. So the Trinity is where everything starts.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's a lot to that. The symbolism can be found all over the world from ever, right? It's been an awareness. The earth that we stand on, the sun and the moon could be one of the very early ways of looking at that Trinity, with, beyond, thousands and thousands of years ago. The very simple things like that. But that awareness of there being an outer realm that is the end, basically. 9 would be like the omega. After that, you're in a new octave. You're in 10, a 1 and a 0. You're just not in that. You're not in that same place anymore. You're in a different vibration, different octave.
Right.
It all starts repeating itself, and 10 is where 1, unity, which is somewhat unknowable, unreachable, makes itself known in the physical through 10.
Yeah, right. It's
And
like
that's
a
a
manifester.
system.
Yeah. And that would be the 10th Sephiroth or something of that nature, Wheel of Fortune, that kind of idea. But yeah, 1 is very unknowable, isn't it? Because it's the source and the beginning, the progenitor of everything.
Right. Right.
And you always see this in science where they're trying to find the signature of the Big Bang, this beginning point, this place. And I don't know if you go into that at all or if you've dwelled on that thought, but do you believe that there is a beginning to the universe, or is this a never-ending scenario? Whatever that means.
Sometimes I think of the Big Bang more like the Big Leak, where it's moving into this universe. So it's the beginning of this universal reality, but it was preceded by many other realities that it's infinite. And
Yeah.
that is a word we toss around too much without the understanding of it's beyond what we're capable of cognizing
Right.
or perceiving, really. But in dealing with some of the higher dimensional beings and some of the beings that actually exist beyond the dimensions, there are other realms of reality that move into higher levels of consciousness, and there are existences far beyond our universe that preceded and helped foster this reality. So it's pretty amazing the way
Yeah.
it keeps going. And all we can do is just be present and be open to allowing what we are capable of bringing through at the moment in the service of all, as we've all been sharing, because we start realizing when you play with these kinds of patterns and the way sacred geometry works, what's sacred about geometry is when it's moving energy, when it's creating connection, when it's creating flow, and when it's transforming everything around it because of that energetic flow.
Mm.
And then we see that everything is connected. Everything has an opportunity to be of service, and we are never separate from anything or alone. And that's why this is our opportunity, each one of us, as we open up to this, to be of connection and service to others.
Yeah, and that I think service is definitely a very strong aspect, a lesson for people to kind of begin to understand. Part of the purpose of being here is why I call it caretaking. Um,
Mhm.
a lot of people have a lot of fear and anxiety and stress, and are kind of really stuck in a very cyclical, mental, physical type of headspace. Um, I think about that. There's like a term used or a slogan or whatever that says that God will only give you what you're able to handle,
Mhm.
and I feel like
Mhm.
that's true, and that should alleviate that idea and that concept is the universe, this alignment and all these energies. It's only going to give you what you can handle, what you're ready for. And if you're not suitable for the next level, you won't achieve that next level, so you won't be accessing it. It's kind of
Mhm.
like rising up in octaves to where you're able to attune to a different octave, then you're able to bring in more lessons and alignments and things like that.
Mhm.
Does your book go into practical steps for people, and what would you say for a beginner that wants to kind of feel out where they're at, and how they can kind of begin the steps towards a greater alignment to themselves?
Well, I think that what we were really working on to get people started, we begin the journey talking about consciousness. What is consciousness? What blocks consciousness? Dialogues about it, so that we're getting people to um, inhabit that level rather than just looking at, well, tell me all this physical stuff.
Hmm.
Because, from what we know, we are multidimensional beings. You know, we all come from pure energy, and energy is something that needs to find form and structure. And, there's a foundation for how energy is going to create over and over again. A lot of people feel tremendous separation and fear because they don't have some of those intrinsic connections installed in the right places. And
Right.
so what we are really working on is helping them see where they belong in this whole journey. And energy is very interesting because it can be very overwhelming, but at the same time, if you can see that this is not just a random universe where all these weird and crazy things are always happening, but instead there's consciousness to it. There's something you can depend on. The way that you see that plants grow and the way our bodies are programmed to grow, and all of life over and over again, there's rhythm and cycle and patterns, and we can actually depend on it. And so when we start anchoring into that concept of we're living in a place that we can actually relax and rely on, as opposed to being fearful of, then we can open up to the higher aspects of who we are. So the way that we take people through the journey with number, for instance, and geometry, is kind of a step-by-step way to help them see how things get started and how they evolve. And they evolve in a way that takes things from the first level and then takes it to the next. And so hopefully what that's doing is it's grounding them. It's helping them see where they belong and how they can tap into their creative self, their source, and be in a place where they can be more present. So, that's one piece of it. And the other thing that we do is, because we're we've been involved with creating tools for 40 years, we know that these tools work, and that people who are feeling that they are disconnected can simply find something that helps them get those connections back in gear again. And, it's not that the tool is making it happen, it's that it's facilitating that process. And that's what tools do. They support us in being able to do what it is that we're here to do. So I think the book is really effective. It's very positive. We talk a lot about how everything in creation has all this pattern and cycle and rhythm and all that. And the foundation of it all is it's not extracted from consciousness. It is consciousness. It's the way that consciousness is enabled to come into this creative domain. So all structure has consciousness, and really at the core of that is love. And when we can relax and start allowing ourselves to be in the presence of that, our lives change. Just like, when you go for a walk in nature and you just start breathing differently, you relax, you hear things that you may not normally hear, including your own inner voice. And as that happens, things start to open and we get acclimated to what's normal instead of the abnormal world that so many people are living in.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Yeah, the forest bathing is the term, I guess, that's used. And there are a lot of terms used, and I think that's where people kind of get confused, is that there's a lot of words being used that they're not really sure what they are. So I imagine that the book kind of steps them through acclimating to the new terminology that they may not be used to hearing, to help them on their way. Consciousness is one of those really tricky ones. Love, I'm finding that that is hard for people to understand, to get. Like, what are we talking about when there's an impulse in the universe that is love, or that harmonizes with love? I almost feel like it needs a little bit more, a less known word, and something that just aligns, but it fits. It's just a fitting word. But for people to really get, like, you're aligning to this thing that many things align to, it's just the nature of this positive upward force. But what's the word? Love seems to fit. It's just hard for, I think, people to get the different concepts and how they apply within this universal principle.
Yeah. And one of the things that we do is, this is a book that has 72 illustrations in it. And so
Mm.
we're not only using words, but we're using physical, illustrations.
Yeah.
And, we all learn differently. Some people learn better from looking at things than they do from hearing them or reading about them. So
Yeah.
we're trying to, work with multitudes of ways that we
Yeah.
learn, and giving people examples and tell stories, using metaphors, for instance, so that
Hmm.
people can see, where does this really fit in your life's experience.
Yeah.
And it's important to realize that these words are metaphors. None
Right.
of them are truth. I mean, even though we have truth, love, and beauty, and we can use those words, and we say that's like the trilogy of consciousness. But what does all that mean? I mean, these are little English words that are flapping out of our mouths.
Right.
And what we're alluding to are principles, are archetypes that are beyond expression through voice, through written word. I mean, all these are just signposts pointing towards something,
Hmm.
pointing toward the opportunity. That's why, so much of what we talk about, like the human being. Let me show you something that we talk about in our book. We say we are like an iceberg, where
Mm.
we were talking earlier how the majority of us is unseen. Only a little bit shows up here in the physical, 10%, like the iceberg. The rest is on other dimensional levels. And yet, everything from source moves through that iceberg, or it's like another metaphor. Like, these are all metaphors. That's all we can do to try to point toward these greater understandings, these greater aspects of creation. And on the right, it's a boat that is pumping oxygen to the human being. This is like the soul pumping the energy to us that we need to exist. And when that energy doesn't flow through our subtle bodies into our physical body, that's when difficulty happens. That's when disease happens. And when we block or deny that flow of energy, we suffer. And that's what we were talking about before, with all of these different things in our physical reality, the stress, the negative emotions, the electromagnetic pollution. All of these things block that flow of energy. So we need to create something that's resonant with source to bring into our lives, so we can counter these negative effects. We're not going to get rid of the electromagnetic pollution. We're going to keep producing with it. Toxins keep building up on this planet. Things are moving faster, and the stress is there. And if people don't understand how to move out of the negative emotions that literally surround the body like a wall and make it difficult for love to come through, love from higher self, love from another person. We are all sharing those higher aspects, and yet it's so difficult to sometimes feel them because of the walls we build around ourselves with our beliefs and our judgments and our fears and the sadness and the guilt. There's so much to overcome in this dimension, and yet we all know that it's possible because we keep experiencing that and seeing that with each other.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. And it is possible, and it is a reality, and it is accessible. And we are in a toxic soup. So it's almost like no time like the present. This is the time to begin that alignment process and really learn how to put the proper barriers up to let the right things in and keep the bad things out. Yeah. Well, this book, Sacred Geometry,
Mhm.
it's available everywhere, I imagine.
It's available on Amazon, Barnes Noble, and we actually are selling signed copies from our
Oh,
website. And
okay.
and actually, Greg, can you bring up that page? Um, we're offering a free chapter about consciousness, the first chapter from the book. If people want to go to I Connect to All, that's the number 2 all.com/chapter, we would be happy to give you that first chapter about consciousness. You get a sense of like where we are, how we write, what our story is about, and then you can take it from there and purchase our full book if you'd like, or whatever, and check it out.
That's fantastic. Yeah, absolutely. Great offer as well. Well, I'll have that all in the description so that people can easily click through. Do
Good.
you guys
Great.
have a final message for the listeners out there?
Well, I think that one of the things that I really love about our perspective on sacred geometry is that it helps us anchor into that we actually do belong here, that
Mhm.
we all come from a similarity. We're all made in the same way, even though everything in life is variable. There's all these wonderful, unique variations. And that's a beautiful part of the way life is. But at the core of it, we have so many similarities that help us see who we are in relationship to everything else. And so for those people who have been feeling, the divisions and separations and all that kind of stuff, our book is really a source of helping us come back to understanding that belonging. I know when I was a little girl, one of the things that really drove me was I'd look up in the universe, in this vast universe and all these stars and everything, and I wanted to know, where do I belong? Where do I fit in this whole crazy scheme of things? And so this is a book that for me has been able to express an understanding of that and a way of finding a place here in this life, and to be really propelled to make difference, to be more and more of who my being really is here and now.
And I know that there are so many young people today that are discouraged by the reality that is being presented in the US, in the world, in terms of so many of the physical blockages, so many of the physical beliefs that aren't working. However, these same young people are the ones that are carrying the spark within them of something different, something more, something with greater potential. And just as what we've been sharing, this world is not ideal. And yet, if we bring ideal concepts in, archetypes, we can start to resonate physically, each one of us personally, working on that aspect. And I feel that so many of the young people are bringing this understanding in on a deeper level. They know that this reality isn't working the way it is. And I think all of us recognizing what Gail was saying, we start recognizing that we're not alone in this process, in this understanding. We're not alone in this journey. We're not alone in this effort. And as more and more of us recognize each other and the reality that we want to supersede this reality, that's our choice right now. And AI and all of that is working with the 3D physical reality. The human being has the potential to incorporate higher dimensional realities, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, all the way up to soul. We are magnificent beings that are not fully discovering who we are yet. And that's the next phase of what's unfolding on this planet, is a higher discovery of who we are and that potential that we hold that's beyond the stuff in 3D that seems to be an impediment.
I love that. Yeah, there's more beyond. Don't get locked in.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's fantastic, guys. Well, thank you so much. I really loved having you on, and I hope to have you on again. It was great.
Thank you.
Well, good.
Thank you. Love
Thank
that.
you.
Take care,
It's
guys.
a rich time. It's a wonderful time to be here.
Yeah, it
And,
really is. It really is, isn't
yeah,
it?
very
Yeah.
special. And I feel like we've signed up for it. So let's make the most of it and really play full on in a beautiful way.
Mhm.
Right. It's kind of like rise up and, stand up and be seen in the winds of infinity and the winds of time. It does seem like the people that are here for a reason, whether they like it or not, whether they know they like it or not.
Right.
Fantastic.
It's fun to like it. It's a lot more fun.
Yeah, it's a lot
when
more
you
fun to
do.
like it. Yeah. Very good, guys. All right. Well, have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you again for joining me. And until next time, take care.
Thank you, Nick, and blessings.
Good night to all.
All right.